Hey there, folks. This is Renessa Boley Layne, and welcome to another conversation on creating your perfect work. If you follow me, then you know that I am all about equipping you to discover, design, and get highly paid to do work you love, whether that means radically changing careers, launching a business, or bringing your big idea to life. So today, I'm super excited because we are going to be talking about personal branding, and we're going to be talking about it in a way that I think is going to surprise you. And I'm super excited about the guest that we have today as well, because he brings such a unique spin and an angle to personal branding that I just think is so cool and so interesting and so authentic. And so I'd like to welcome to the platform, William Arruda. I'm excited to have you. I'm going to allow William to kind of introduce himself and give you the spiel of who he is and all of the incredible things that he's doing in the marketplace. And then, as always, I'm going to tell you what I really think about him and why I think he's so awesome. So I'm going to kind of set the stage to you, William. Welcome. Thank you for being so generous and sharing your time and sharing your thought leadership with us. We're definitely excited to have you on the series.
Well, Renessa, I'm thrilled to be here and always delighted to talk about my very favorite topic, personal branding. It is, I tell everyone I'm a one-trick pony. Personal branding is pretty much what I do. It's what I've done for the last 20 years and helping people figure out who they are, what makes them great, and use it to be successful so they can increase their happiness and success at work. Yep. That's my thing.
Awesome. So he neglected to tell you all the awesome stuff that he's done. Like, he's written a couple of books. He's the author of an incredible book called Career Distinction. He's the author of a book called Digital You. We're going to be talking a lot about that content today. He is truly a pioneer in the personal branding space. And so I appreciate that he's humble, but I want y'all to know that this guy knows his stuff. Okay. But here's why I specifically handpicked William to be on this series, because I'm very deliberate about the guests that we bring to this audience, because I want folks that are going to add tremendous value and really help us to elevate our game in our career and our business. And what I really appreciate about William and his work, one, his approach to personal branding is all about you and being very authentic to who you are, as opposed to showing up, what do we think the market wants to hear from me, right? And trying to kind of get in where we fit in that regard. And so I appreciate that he has this term. I don't know, William, if it's a term that you came up with or if someone else kind of coined it, but it was this idea of working your quirks. And we all have quirks, and it's bringing that to the marketplace and really being able to be authentic about that, get paid for that, connect to clients and hiring managers in a way that allows us to be true to who we are. That's one. The second piece is that he's really great about understanding trends as it relates to where's the market going, how are things shifting, because sometimes we can kind of get stuck in patterns, and sometimes you need people to be like, look, this is where the train is going, and you need to get on board or make it happen. And so we're going to talk a lot about concepts like video and how we actually put our thought leadership and who we are into the marketplace. And I'm someone who personally, I don't like to watch a lot of video, to be honest. Like, if I see, I'm like, oh, can you give me the transcript? Like, that's just how I like to consume content. But as someone who is in the marketplace and I need to reach customers, my customers like video. And so it doesn't matter how I feel about it, what I consume, I got to get with the program. And so there's a few things that William is going to share in our conversation that might challenge you to get with the program if you're trying to elevate yourself in your career and your business and whatnot. And so I'm delighted that he brings those elements, and you're going to really be blessed by the things that he has to say. Cool? So let's get cracking. All right. So I think, again, because this is a conversation on creating your perfect work, I always like to ask folks, you know, how do you know, William, because you've been doing this work for 20 years and you've had a corporate background and the like, how do you know that the work that you're doing right now is the perfect work for you? Like, it may evolve over time and change, but how do you know that this is right direction for you right now?
Well, I'll tell you, it's super easy for me. I had a job I loved. I worked in corporate branding for IBM, and I thought I was going to work for the man or the woman for the rest of my life. I loved it, and I thought, this is great. And then I read an article, 1997, Tom Peters, The Brand Called You, and the cover story in Fast Company magazine. And when I read the article, and in the article, he essentially says, in the future, to be successful, we need to think of ourselves as brands the way companies do. Okay. And that was my world's biggest epiphany ever. Wow. So I knew I had to leave the corporate world. I didn't even want to, I'm a reluctant entrepreneur. I had no desire to be an entrepreneur, right? But there was no job for a chief personal brand officer anywhere. So I had to jump ship and start my own company. So it's pretty, I feel like it's my destiny. It would be hard for me to come up with anything that I would rather do, or I think I would be as good at.
So there you know, if you can't think of anything better to do, then I guess you are doing exactly what you're supposed to do, and that's a good feeling to have. Let me ask you this, though. I think there are a lot of misconceptions around what personal branding is, and because there are all these misconceptions, either A, people shy away from it altogether, right? Or B, they think this is something that's nice to have, but not need to have. And so then we delay doing the work that we need to do to really make sure that our brand is hot until our backs are against the wall and we need a job or we need an elevation. And now we're trying to scramble together to pull a couple sentences, right? So before we get into what personal branding is, tell us some of the misconceptions that you see all the time, and reassure folks about what personal branding isn't.
Yeah, so I'm so glad you asked that, because I actually have been in the field of personal branding longer than anyone on earth. So I have been through it all. And way back at the beginning, there were so many misconceptions. There was zero business in personal branding. Yeah. Biggest one, I think, is that personal branding is about chest pounding. It's about telling people how great you are. It's about creating an image for the outside world. Being famous, that's another one, that personal branding is about being famous. When it's not that at all. Yeah. Personal branding is about visibility for the sake of being visible. Yeah. None of that is true. Personal branding is really, it's just connected to who you are. It's being your best self every day in support of others. So it really doesn't have to do with you. It has to do with the value you deliver to others.
I love that. And I remember reading that in your book, and it's something that I'd highlighted, because I think the mistake that a lot of us make is that we do make our branding about us, what we like, what, this or that, when in actuality, it really is about understanding who do we want to serve, and then what do we want that audience to know about how we can deliver for them. I think that's a really important distinction, whether the audience, to be quite frank, is a hiring manager or an executive team in a company that you're working for, or whether that audience is a customer base, or whether that audience is an audience that you're speaking and you're trying to bring a message and you're mobilizing a movement to. Like what William is talking about applies no matter who you are. This is really critical work. And as a segue, why is personal branding so critical now, especially as there are different trends in the marketplace? People consume information differently, we make decisions differently. Why is personal branding so non-negotiable at this stage of the game?
Yeah, I think the thing everyone needs to remember is there are other people who do what we do, no matter what we do. If you're in a category with one and you're the only person who does what you do, and the only person I can come up with who does this is the Queen of England. That's the only person I know. No one else can have that job. Yep. If you're not the Queen of England, then you pretty much need to let people know what differentiates you from everyone else who does what you do and why that's valuable to them. Otherwise, you miss out on opportunities. You don't get paid the money that you deserve for the work that you deliver. You are always in search of something, whereas strong brands, things come to them. So if you want to have a life that you love, where opportunities come to you and you feel that you're being adequately compensated for the value that you deliver, you need to build your brand.
Yeah. I think for a lot of us listening in, people get accustomed or have this perception that you're always the one that has to knock on the door. Like if you're looking for a job or whatnot, well, I've got to go out there and find somebody in my network, or I've got to go and apply to, some job posting or whatnot, or I've got to go find my customers and my clients. And there's an element of hustle, right, that we all have to do whatever it is we want to do. But there is something to be said when the market comes a knocking on your door, when you are more than happy and content in your current job, and someone knocks on your door with an even sweeter deal because they've seen who you are. And so that's a huge byproduct, and probably I think the biggest byproduct of having a very strong brand.
Yeah. I will tell you, we call that demanded. There are 3 stages of branding.
Yeah,
And the third stage is an attraction opportunity, right? Where your brand is built, it's so strong and it's so crystal clear in the hearts and minds of the people who need to know you, that's where you start to attract opportunities. You turn fans into promoters. So you have this whole sales force of people touting how great you are to the rest of the world.
Let's talk about those three stages or phases or whatnot, because I think it's important for people to hear and also be able to pinpoint where they are in the process, so that then they know where they need to go. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. So the first phase, and probably most of the people on the line are not here, but it's undifferentiated. It's essentially, you can tick the box next to everything that's required to do what you do, and that's it. You add nothing more. There's nothing distinctive or interesting or compelling about it. You're essentially in a world where everything's transactional.
Yeah.
You constantly have to look for the next opportunity. You have to look for the next client. You have to look for the next job. Whatever it is, you're just pursuing that.
Mm-hmm.
The second phase, and this is where most of the people, when I first meet them, this is kind of where they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's called distinguished. It means not only can you tick the boxes next to what's required for what you do, but there's some value add, some interesting thing that makes you stand out a little bit from others. And what happens is, when you stand out a little bit, you work your quirks, as you said, you start to build fans. So you start to have these people who follow you and want to connect with you. And that's kind of a good place to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the ultimate is what we were just talking about, is when your brand is so clear, consistent, and constantly visible to the people who are making decisions about you, all of a sudden, you never go into hiding. You're always visible to these people and available, and the people who need you find you. So that's where, there's something called planned serendipity. We don't know who's needs what we have to offer, but we need to make sure we're as visible as possible so that they can find us. And that's what happens in that third phase of branding.
It's so interesting, because one of the things that you say when it comes to branding is that, because here's what I see. A lot of times, I think the mistake we make is that we think branding has to do with all of these other elements, like the little shiny objects or the cool widget on my website, or it's like this, it's like a gimmick or a fad, or what's the latest thing that now I'm branded. But in actuality, a lot of what you teach is that you're the brand, and it starts with you. And in fact, I think there's one point you made, because you were talking about online versus, real life and all that kind of stuff. You say that you can't build your online profile until you understand who you are in the real world. And I think a lot of us build things on the outside, whether it's a bio or even a resume or a LinkedIn profile. And that person that that persona we've created may or may not even be like who we are at the core. Tell us why you put such a premium on first understanding who you are and who you want to be in the real world before you start building a persona and a network and all of that on the outside.
Yeah, and this is the biggest thing that I want to talk to your folks about, because the key to successful branding is authenticity. If you're trying to be something you're not, or trying to convince people of something you're not, you're going to get found out. Anne Morrow Lindbergh once said, the most exhausting thing you can be is inauthentic, right? It's like playing a role on Broadway. That's exhausting every night, to go be somebody that you're not. And so the authenticity piece is critical. And the way authenticity happens is you figure out, who am I? What's important to me? What are my values? What's my purpose? What are my superpowers? What are the things that help me stand out? And when you get clarity on that, that's what you build your brand around. The strongest brands in the world, they build their brand around what's true and genuine and real, right? Apple builds it around innovation because they create innovation. Disney is family entertainment. Volvo is safety, right? So what is your unique promise of value? Until you know that, you can't be doing things online. And I think a lot of problems that we've seen now is a lot of people have grown up where personal branding starts online. Because they're already fingers to keys, right? Gen Y and Gen Z folks, they're kind of building their online persona without having done that introspection to figure out, who am I? What's important to me? What do I want to tell the world about me? What makes me stand out from everyone else? So now there's that persona that exists out there, but it may or may not be congruent with who you really are.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about who we really are, because I think sometimes we don't value who we really are, right? And I think you made the point earlier, there's lots of people that do what we do. There's lots of people that coach and speak in the world. There's lots of people that, like you, that are thought leaders and put out information on, even on personal branding. There's lots of people that have the same career, the same job, or the same function that are listening in on this conversation. The challenge, though, is sometimes what is common to us, whether it's how we solve problems or our perspective on how we address issues, like that's common to us. And we don't recognize that what's common to us may actually be uncommon in the marketplace, or there may be a value and a premium that's put on that. How do you help people to really connect to their differences and their uniqueness and actually place a value on that? Because if I don't value what I bring to the table, you're not going to value what I bring to the table, right? So how do you help people make that leap? Because I think for a lot of us, I'm like, that's just what I do. Like, that's, who am I? Or that's not a big deal. And so you never get to that place of really doing the personal branding because you don't value who you are, as the person.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up. A lot of people, especially everyone has superpowers, right? We may not know what our superpowers are. We certainly probably don't call them superpowers, but that's what I call them. They're the things that you do better than anyone else that are really attractive to the people who are making decisions about you. Now, we often discount our superpowers because they usually come easily to us, right? There's not a lot of hard work to figure out how to do this stuff. We just naturally do it. Yeah. And so I think that the key to getting real clarity around your unique brand promise is first doing the introspection, right? Doing work on your values and your purpose and your passions and your vision and your differentiation and your superpowers and all of that. And then to validate that from the outside in. And when you validate it, the world tells you the stuff about you that they really appreciate, right? They hone in on these things that make you amazing that you may not even acknowledge for yourself. And for some of us, in fact, for many of us, that feedback is more powerful to us than anything that we could think of ourselves. And so I think when you take that introspection and you combine it with that external validation, you get some clarity about what your nugget of value is. Mm-hmm. And that is the message that you put forth in the marketplace. And that's what helps you start to stand out and attract the attention of the right people.
No, that's perfect. And I want to bring that point home because for a lot of you that are listening in, you're listening into this conversation because you're trying to figure out, well, how does this align to my perfect work? How does this align to the work that I know that I was born to do, or the contribution to the marketplace that I was meant to have? And a lot of times we can second guess who we are because always, someone else's highlight reel always looks better than our behind the scenes, without a doubt. And so this whole concept of, being honest about what you bring to the market and then going out and validating what you bring to the market, because oftentimes people see us in ways that we don't see ourselves. Getting that validation so that you recognize, hey, this way that you solve problems, or this way that you engage in meetings, or this way that you're able to bring, organization to chaos, or that you're able to turn around dysfunctional teams, or you're able to put this product out into the marketplace. Like, there's real value in that. Like, you gotta believe that, because once you believe it, then you can make it sizzle. Like in William's book, he talks about, your LinkedIn profiles and bios and different things and how you kind of make that sizzle. Well, you first have to have a foundation on which you can add a little sizzle. And so this validation piece becomes really critical when you're thinking about your own personal brand. Let's talk a little bit about real me versus virtual me. Because you assert that it's non-negotiable for people to have an online presence of some kind. And there are a lot of folks for whom they will shy away from that. You Google their name, you would think that they were under witness protection. Like you can't find them anywhere, right? So we're not dealing with folks who might have digital dirt, as you call it, stuff that they need to clean up. Let's talk about the folks who are either non-existent, or the effort that's been put into that impression is just so lackluster that it's like, okay, I have a profile, or I've got, something online, and that's just about it. Like, why is it so critical that people kind of get into this digital game? How does this impact career? How does this impact business? Why is it non-negotiable?
Yeah, so here's the thing, and this is what my new book is all about. It's the translation process of the real you to the virtual you. Mm-hmm. And here's what's happened. Most people's first impression has moved online. People meet you in the virtual world before they ever meet you in person. And because of a cognitive bias we have, which is called primacy, it means we believe the first thing we learn. Wow. So when somebody Googles you, whatever shows up, that is who you are to this person. So if you don't show up, it means this person must not be worth connecting with.
Yeah.
If you show up in not such a great way, again, it's a bad first impression. So in fact, Renessa, I met you online.
That's right.
You sent me an email. I checked you out online. That was my first impression of you. This conversation we're having right now is the first real conversation we had, right? And so I'm essentially doing an assessment in my head. Is this the person that I met online? Yeah. And that's what's happening. So your first impression has moved online. We all know how important first impressions are. It's absolutely critical that that impression be exactly congruent with who people would meet if they met you and shook your hand in person.
Yeah, I can't stress that point enough, because that could literally be the difference in you getting a client. So for those of you who perhaps are coaches, trainers, you don't even have to be coaches, trained, that you provide some kind of service for which a client has to choose you, or there's some consultation that comes into play. You could lose that initial consultation by someone going and Googling you and being like, oh no, like, well, who is this person and what are they about? I think in your book, William, you said 80% of hiring managers or recruiters admitted to Googling, folks before they were hired. And so they're trying to figure out, well, what kind of brand do you have? Who are you? What are you about? There's something that you said. You said that when someone Googles you, they evaluate you on 5 measures of online branding without even realizing that they're doing it. Can you break those down for us? Because I think people would be really surprised that subconsciously these are the decisions that we make about each other, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first is volume. If somebody Googles you and a lot of stuff shows up, then clearly you have something to say, right? And without even looking at what that content is, you're a player.
Yeah.
Second is relevance. Is this person consistent with who I think they are, who I need them to be, right? The reason that I'm checking them out. The third is purity, right? Can I even figure out what content is about this person versus other people who share their name, right? We need to make sure that we can discern what content is about this person. Is this the real estate broker or the engineer, or right? It's pretty hard to figure out. Validation is one of the most important ones. And validation is other people speaking on your behalf. Is everything on the web you speaking about you, or are there other people validating what you say about you? So that could be, are you quoted in publications or magazines? Are there testimonials that talk about what you're great? In LinkedIn, it's having recommendations that tout the things that you tell people makes you great. And by the way, I distilled all these 5 things down. If you want to really look at this on a simple kind of 4-box model, what you want to look at is likability and credibility. Credibility is, this person, they know their stuff, they can deliver value, they tick the box next to everything I need, and other people validate what they say about this. They're credible because they earned this degree, they quoted in this publication, they were nominated for this award, whatever it is. That's the credibility piece.
Yeah.
The likability piece is, how human are you?
Yeah.
Do I want to work with you? People want to work with people they know, like, and trust.
True.
So are you demonstrating that likability? And one of the biggest mistakes people make online is they treat the way they used to do their resume, right, as the way they're going to build their virtual brand. And what your resume is, it's a list of facts. It's mostly credibility. It's not likability at all. It's, I did this and I did this and I went to this school and I managed this many people and whatnot. And that's problematic. When people meet you, and let's face it, if they're meeting you in person, you can exude how human you are. Yeah. But since they're meeting you online, you need to really reinforce that likability element. What are you passionate about? What do you do outside of work? What are your values? What are the things that really excite you? What are some epiphanies you've had in your career, right? How do you get people to connect with you on a deeper, more emotional level? Because that's what we want to do with human beings.
Yeah. I want to park here for a minute because I think there's just so much gold here. There's just gold here, guys. It's really, really gold here. Because I think for many of us, you know, gone are the days where you just work hard or your skills speak for themselves, right? Because for a lot of us, we do a lot more telecommuting. We work from home or it's remote. You know, for people in careers, you may work remote more days than you're actually in the office. You may not necessarily be in the office at the same time as your boss or some of your colleagues or decision makers who need to know you. And when it comes to promotion decisions and salary increase decisions, your visibility is critical. And so many people get passed up for promotion, not because they're not qualified, not because they don't do good work, but because people don't know them. There are lots of folks who are business owners and you are the best kept secret because nobody knows you. Customers don't know you, and influencers and advocates and sponsors who could open doors for you don't know you. And we hide behind doing really great work, not realizing that the game has shifted. And so when I said in the beginning that he tells you some of the things, you just gonna have to get on board with this, as uncomfortable as it may feel, this is one of those things where you just gotta get on board. Like, people need to be able to see you and recognize your talent, right? So even this volume bit, you know, when someone Googles your name, like, how many times are you showing up? There's all kinds of ways that we can influence that. And I'll turn that back over to William. Like, if you're someone in a career, for example, we'll talk about this from a career standpoint, and we'll talk about it from entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship could be plumber, it could be contract. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't have to be just be thought leader that's out here talking. Anybody who's got a business, you've got to get visibility. But when we think about volume, that piece, how can people influence volume when they're getting Googled and all that kind of stuff? What are just ways that they can influence that?
Yeah. So volume, it sounds intimidating to people because they say, oh my gosh, it's going to, the internet can take over your life, right? If you're engaged in every kind of social media and you have profiles on every single site, you pretty much can't do your day job because you're focused on that. And so what happens is it just paralyzes us and we do nothing.
Yep.
But in fact, I think if you're much more thoughtful about how you go about creating content and visibility, you're going to be much more successful. So let's start with one really important thing.
Yeah.
Personal branding is not about being famous. It's about being selectively famous.
Yes.
So you only need to be visible to the people who are making decisions about you, which means you need to know what it is you want to do next and what you want to do after that. Yeah. And those are the people, right? The people in your current org and the people who are going to help you get to where you want to go, who cannot get away from you. So what you want to do is define what that is. Yeah. Then second, you need to say, where are those people online, right? How do I make my visibility focused and targeted at that community? So if, let's say you want to become the chief marketing officer at your company, well, you need to be visible to marketers and to senior executives who support that. Where are the places they go online, and how can you be in those places? Yeah. So you might want to write an article for Marketing Profs about your marketing expertise. You might want to join groups in LinkedIn that are related to marketers, so that the volume within that community is huge, but to the rest of the world, you can live in total obscurity. And that's really the key here is if you try to communicate to the world at large, you will overwhelm yourself. But if you get really crystal clear on who are the people who need to know me so that I can be successful, and how can I deliver value to them? How can I be visible to them? Right? Visible, available, and valuable is what you're going for. Then you can easily identify the places you want to be. And you can get yourself quoted in a Forbes article, and you can offer to write a blog post for a relevant blog. And all of that content will ultimately show up as part of your volume of profiles and intellectual property on the web.
Yeah, that's such a critical point, and I highlighted it. You know, being selectively famous, like, that's worth its weight in gold. If you don't take anything else from this conversation, that right there, you get the book for that. Digital news, go get the book for that statement alone. Why? Because you're absolutely correct. I think many of us waste so much time and energy kind of trying to be all things to all people, or we're expending our energy in directions that do not serve really where we want to go next. We're trying to get in and make connections, and are you really being strategic about who you connect to, who you align with? Because there's only a finite amount of time in the day. There's only a finite amount of energy that you can expend on any given thing. And when you know where you want to go, then you know the fishing holes that you want to camp out in. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. Something as simple as, you know, you want to make a pivot in your company from a line-based business into HR. You could be on the intranet commenting on different initiatives or offering different suggestions around employee engagement or pinpointing certain problems or things that, you know, people may have missed and solutions and off. Just even that being you're not necessarily being visible to the broader world, but you're being very visible to people within your organization who are making decisions around what openings you may not know anything about. But if you know that that's where you want to go, then you know those decision makers are camping out over here. That's where you need to be making comments and opinions and being, you know, constructive and all of that. That's huge. It's huge. And any and everybody can do it. Anybody can do it. I think the relevance piece is also really, really important. Of those, there's three of them that I thought were just golden. The relevance piece, when people are looking at you and they're making a first impression, they're asking themselves the question, do I need to know this person? We all do it. We all judge people. When we get inbound requests or, you know, whatever, it's like, well, who is this cat? Like, you know, so people are doing that to you as well. And so so however you want to be seen in the market, it's so critical to take the time when you don't need it. Because when you need that visibility or you need that opportunity, it's too late to start cleaning up. So
that's exactly right.
Critical. And then the validation, for entrepreneurs especially, what your customers say about what you do. I think there's so many opportunities that come. We serve people in a great way. They're so fired up, and then they walk on down without ever having told anybody, without ever having made a video, without ever having left a testimonial. Like, those are opportunities that we can't let pass by, because what you say about, I can say I can say whatever I want to say about what I can do, but if William comes and says, Renessa's awesome, Renessa's awesome. If I come and say, get the book, like, you're far more inclined to be like, oh, Renessa thinks that book is great, than if William sat here for 5 minutes telling you all the great things that are in his book. And by the way, get the book. Does that make sense? So these elements here are so crucial. And I hope folks are writing this down, because it makes all the difference in the world. Let's talk a little bit about brand community. Because you have this, because you've already kind of hit on the point a little bit about being selectively famous.
Right.
So help us understand, if we are being strategic about building our personal brand, you say I think there are 5 sets of people who need to know and be connected to our personal brand. Break those folks down for us so we know who we need to be bringing into our brand circle, our brand community, as you call it.
Yeah, and let me start with this really important statement. The Lone Ranger syndrome will work against you. We all create success by being connected to and delivering value to others. And I think one of the mistakes that people make is they lock themselves in their office all day. They work incredibly hard. They deliver something that's really powerful and valuable, but they've not been visible to the people who need to know them. Nobody sees the value that they've contributed. And they essentially keep doing that and doing that and doing that and not getting anywhere. And then there's this other community of people who are actively involved and engaged in every moment with all the people who need to know them. And they're always visible and always available to that community. And that community sees the value that they're delivering. And really the difference is huge, because that community becomes your sales force, your group of promoters, the people who can mentor you and add value to you and whatnot. So rather than go through all the D's of this community, I just want to highlight a few. One that's really important is the people who are your mentors, your support, the people who essentially fill you back up when you feel depleted, or can remove some big stressor or anxiety or question that you just can't solve on your own. Knowing who that community of people is and feeling really comfortable whenever you need to go to them for advice, for support, just for a sounding board, just to vent to, that will take you leaps and bounds from where you are. So getting clear about that. And at the same time, getting clear about when do you play that role for others? How can you be a mentor for others? Who are the people who can come to you? How do you let them know that they can come to you anytime they have a problem, or they can come to you for this category of stuff if you have a technical issue, or you just need a place to vent, or you want some sound career advice, whatever it is, right? And all of this stuff, it's a two-way. It's really a two-way approach of creating relationships, right? Relationships are not one-sided. So with everybody, your role has to be, this person might be my mentor. What's the stuff that I can deliver to them that has some value? So that's one area. And I will tell you, women in particular are less connected than men, we know. In all the social media that exists, LinkedIn, it has more men than women. All the other social media, there are more women, right? So there's a missed opportunity for women who want to build professional network with people who are in LinkedIn. And the thing that we know about LinkedIn is searching in LinkedIn is gender agnostic, right? Whereas networks often formed inside companies are often very gender centric, right? So it gives you an opportunity to connect with the people that you need to connect with. And I think that's a really important thing. The other thing that the people that you want to be on their radar that people don't think about, so one of these communities, are the people who are talking about your topic. And so this could be contributors to different publications. It could be journalists. It could be authors. It could be thought leaders in your area of expertise. It's all of those people who need to know that you exist. So that if they do need a quote for their story, you're there. And by the way to get on their radar is they write a story. You write them and say, I love that story. Here's the thing I love most about it. And here's the other thing that I would add to that, right? And you start a conversation and you start to build a relationship with these kinds of people who are the experts, the thought leaders, the sea of people that you want to be among, because they're your people, right? And they also have they have a little bit of a megaphone so that they can help you blast your message. And that's another community I think a lot of people ignore, right? Everyone thinks about, the people, who are my managers and the people who I need to be visible to, who are my clients and the people I need to be visible to, and so forth. But I think the ones where you can have a huge impact and maybe where you're not really spending a lot of time right now are those kind of the mentors, support people, and these people who have a megaphone that you can connect with and they can help you get your message out further.
Yeah. No, I think that's huge. I think that's huge. I mean, think about it. Let's say, you took William's advice and you saw someone who was doing a piece about whatever that lines up with your career, whatever function you're in. You end up doing that very same strategy, and you end up getting quoted in some magazine about supply chain or whatever. Imagine going into your next interview and on your resume and in your communication and on your LinkedIn and all of that, it talks about you're featured in ba, 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 ba. Instantaneously, you've got a leg up. You've been distinguished because now they think this guy's a thought leader or this woman's a thought leader in this space. Has nothing to do with your skill, because your skill and the next person's skill might be, give or take, a standard deviation the same. But this is the stuff that differentiates. There's your craft, and then there is the building and the nurturing of your craft, and that's a very, very different skill. And so, or the marketing of your craft, probably is a better way to say it. And so, just that strategy alone would put you leaps and bounds in terms of just interest of people saying, "Man, I really want this woman to come in and compete for this role." I think it's huge. It's what happens when folks are deciding, which service provider am I going to choose? The one as seen on, or this other person, And so it's those little things that make a huge difference, right? I think it's brilliant. But tell us the other, because you mentioned the two. Tell us the other three, just so people have an idea of who those other folks are in the brand community, even if we don't go into detail about them.
Well, so just so you know, we kind of combined a bunch of them in those two. So I think I've created a little bit of complication for people.
I'll say how you broke it down, right?
Okay. All right, so, you want to
see? So he talks about decision makers. So folks who are in your space who are decision makers.
Those are the ones we all know. Yeah,
we want to be there. We talked about doyens. Am I saying it right? DOYENS?
Doyens, yeah.
Those are people who are your peers. They're other, thought leaders, expertise colleagues, and so forth. Then you talked about disciples, so folks that you need to motivate to follow you. So if you're an entrepreneur, there are customers, there are clients, there are people who need to know about you. They need to be in your community. The defenders are the ones that you were talking about, who they pick you up, on that face plant. They will get you through some of those obstacles and those hurdles. Those are great. And then the discoursers, I think, are those mouthpieces, people who have a megaphone who can amplify your brand and who you are. I think the biggest takeaway, at least for me, was this idea of being a Lone Ranger. And a lot of times you can, the ground can get really dry if it's just you tilling away with your skill and whatever your value is, if there's nobody to be your mouthpiece, if there's nobody to do these other elements. And so that Lone Ranger concept is really, really critical, or getting rid of that Lone Ranger concept is critical if you want to elevate. And so the branding is important, and then the visibility of the brand is just gold. Let me, as we start to kind of head into the home stretch here, you're a huge proponent of LinkedIn. And we haven't officially said that, but there's been so many references in this conversation. And yes, there's lots of platforms that someone can use to elevate their brand or move their brand forward. Why are you such a proponent of LinkedIn?
Yeah, well, really easy. Number one, when someone's checking you out in a professional capacity, it's often the first place they go. It's assumed that somebody who is a valid, valuable professional has a profile. So people often go there. Even if they don't go directly to LinkedIn and they Google you, because of the power of LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile is going to show up in one of the top 3 spots. And we know that 62% of all clicks end up in the top 3 spots. And by the way, for most people, if you don't have your own website with your domain name, it shows up in the top spot, and that gets almost all of the clicks. So you absolutely, I'm not saying don't go into Instagram and Facebook and SlideShare and YouTube and all of those. Pick the ones that work for you, where your community exists, but you have to start with LinkedIn. The other reason I love LinkedIn is the way that they've organized content. It's exactly how you want to tell your story. Your headline is reel them in, right? Magnetic, get them excited, get them to want to learn more. Your summary, or now called about, right? That's where you tell your story. It's not where you repeat what's in your experience. It's where you tell people why they want to connect with you. That's the combination of likability, credibility, right? It's your story, and you need to focus on the first 3 lines, because the new version of LinkedIn is designed such that when someone looks at your profile, they only see the first 3 lines, and then they have to click see more. So those first 3 lines had better not be boring. They need to be compelling, provocative, interesting, exciting, something that's going to make someone click see more to see the rest. Then the credibility piece comes in your endorsements, and your top 3 are the most important because that's all anybody sees until they click see more. Whatever those 3 are that show up, that's what people think you're good at. But it's endorsements from others, right? So this is validation that we talked about earlier. And the same thing with recommendations. This is external people talking about what makes you great. And then other credibility comes from your experience, right? That's where you highlight how expert you are, all the great stuff that you've accomplished, all of that sits there. Education, back to more validation. Some organization gave you a diploma. And because of that, right, that means something. So any education that you've had, that's a really important place to be. So if you look at all the elements, oh, by the way, multimedia is the key thing. LinkedIn allows you to add multimedia to your about, behind your photo, something that communicates a message. So you don't have to just use 26 letters of the alphabet to talk about you. You can use images and infographics and videos to be able to get people to connect with you on that deep emotional level. And the reason this is key is, let's be clear, many jobs are going to be done by robots in the future. Right? Robots can analyze numbers. Robots can write contracts. Robots can do a lot of stuff that we humans can do, and they can do it better and less expensively. What robots can't do is build relationships. So we as human beings, to get things done, we live in the relationship economy. Building those relationships and being able to make things happen, that's what we need to focus on, because that's what sets us apart from this new workforce that's moving in, that's going to take over the mundane work and give us the opportunity to collaborate with others to make things happen.
Awesome. I think that's awesome. I will put a plug in, because William was talking about just even your profile and your summary and those 3 lines and making sure that it's interesting and all of that. In his book, he has 6 ways, I don't know how he said it, but there are 6 different approaches that you might be able to take to create a really, really interesting profile summary. And it's great. Like, it's great. Like, literally, I was watching it, I was reading it about 10 o'clock last night, and I was like, oh, I need to change some things. Literally went and rejigged my entire summary based on one of those suggestions. So for those of you who are trying to get away from the standard proven ability to do as your summary, there are some really, really interesting, innovative, and neat ways to shine. And at the end of the day, it's about making who you are just sizzle a little bit, right? So if you get the book, there's that element there that I think is actually really valuable. So as we close out, let's say, someone's listening to this conversation and they're like, I got to get on the train. I got to get with the program here. And it can be overwhelming because there's this sense of, where do I even begin? So let's assume they're going to do the work that's required to figure out who they are, their values, and how they want to be seen in the marketplace. So let's assume that the personal stuff is done. Now they're looking to get more visible with that brand, to build that brand community, to connect with people and begin to add value and to begin to be seen for what they have to offer. Practically speaking, how would you advise folks to start? Like, how many people, like, how do you even think about who you select, or how many people you focus on? And maybe it's a certain time frame that you do, like, how can they chunk this down so that it becomes doable, that it's not overwhelming, they still have day jobs and day businesses, whatnot. How can they begin to think about this very strategically and act on it tactically?
Yeah, great. So first thing I would say, by the way, is tell your story. Once you start posting stuff online, people are going to check out who you are. So you could be every day integrating all kinds of content into all these platforms and being really visible, but you could be actually causing yourself some damage if people then click to say, who is this person? And they go check out your LinkedIn profile and it's lackluster or not exciting or me too. So first, make sure that you've told your story in a rich and compelling way so that whatever you put online connects back to that amazing you and starts to build relationships. Then what you want to do is, I tell people, if you think of social media and building your visibility as a separate act, you're never going to do it, because it's never going to become high enough priority on your do list, because you already have more stuff to do than time to do it, and more emails to get to. And you know, we all live in this never ending sense of overwhelm.
Yeah.
So think about the stuff that you regularly do that you can turn into something that's visible. So let's say you attend meetings at your professional association. How can you take a summary of what you learn and post that as a LinkedIn blog, right? Just take a few notes down, say, last night at this association, I learned this. The sites that you go to for information, right? Where you're learning, you know, maybe if you're in human resources and you look at Training Magazine because training is really important to you, then when you see an article that you like, share it with the people in your network. Tell people why you like it, or make it more valuable by saying, I love the 3 points here. I would add points 4 and 5. Now you've just made someone else's article even more valuable to your community. So if you're checking stuff out online, do that. When you connect with new people, look at what they're posting and post little comments, or be willing to share their content, right? You look through your LinkedIn feed, you say, that's interesting. Don't just say it's interesting, say it's interesting. Let me take this interesting content, and as a gift, let me make it visible to my connections. And then share it with your people. So just take the stuff that you're regularly doing and ask yourself that one step. Now, what can I do with this that will make me visible and demonstrate my value to the community who needs to know me? And if you take that one extra step each time, all of a sudden you're out there. People know it, and you're doing it in a powerful, positive, generous, valuable way.
Awesome. And in the spirit of generosity, William does not stop there, because he is extending a unique gift, a free gift for everyone that's listening in on this conversation. And I think it's 9 ways to humbly do something,
yourself.
You know. So I'm gonna let you talk about it, and then I'll tell people how they can actually get access to it.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for a lot of people in personal branding is no one wants to be chest pounding. No one wants to scream from the rooftops how great they are. But there are lots of ways that you could let people know how great you are without even saying that you're great. And so that's really what it's about. Just some quick tips for getting comfortable with making sure you're visible without sounding like an arrogant, haughty buffoon.
And so at the bottom of William's interview, you'll see a total description of that free gift, and you'll see a link that you're able to click on and get access to that content. Let me just encourage you. I mean, I've been enriched by the book, so I encourage any of you who are who need a boost, to say the least, in your personal brand. Get the book. There's so many great tips in that. But more importantly, follow William. He's a pioneer in that space. He's done all the heavy lifting. Like, we get to just kind of, lick the gravy off of what he's doing. Follow him and implement those tips and implement those tricks so that you get visible for the part of the world that you're meant to build. And all of us, we've got callings on our lives and places that we're supposed to have great impact. And what William is sharing allows us to get more visibility, allows us to connect in ways that amplify what it is that we're looking to do in the world. And so I appreciate you being here. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your thought leadership. And I'll speak on behalf of William and myself. And we wish you guys an amazing day, every success in the world. Take great care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.